Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, welcome you to Kaza Technical School. Today we are going to do Oxy-Fuel welding. If you remember, in our previous demonstration lesson, we covered Oxy-Fuel cutting. And I told you in that previous lesson that the same setup which we used for Oxy-Fuel cutting can also be used for Oxy-Fuel welding. So follow us on our journey as we prepare our workpieces. We have cut our metals, we are going to weld, and now we are going to prepare them by sanding them. By sanding, we are removing the mill scale. This is the black coating on them. And in our demonstration lesson, we are going to do what we call melt runs on this scrap metal. Then on these other metals, we are going to weld some joints. For example, like this joint you see which we welded earlier. This is a corner joint weld. So we are going to do another corner joint using these metals. Then with these ones, we are going to do our T-joint. T-joint is something like this. You can see it makes letter T. Then after that, using our previous setup and this other metal, we are going to do a lap joint, something like this. We shall choose how to best set it up. So those are our joints we are going to do in our demonstration lesson. So follow us as we prepare ourselves to do Oxy-Fuel welding. So what I'm doing is sanding. This is sandpaper. I'm removing the mill scale. Basically, if all welding requires clean metal, if your metal is clean, it becomes easier to fuse those metals, opposed to welding on dirty metals. We are going to do our welding on this. This is our welding table. Previously, we used this torch for Oxy-Fuel cutting, and now we have removed it. We have disconnected the hose pipes from the Oxy-Fuel cutting torch. Now we are going to connect the hose pipes on the Oxy-Fuel welding torch. You can see the difference. The major difference between them is the nozzles. When you look at this nozzle, it has many orifices, the small holes. And when you look at this one for Oxy-Fuel welding, it has only one hole. And also this one, the one for Oxy-Fuel welding, doesn't have the lever. The one you see which I'm pressing in. In our previous demonstration lesson, we covered this torch. Now let's connect on the other thing to note is you might be wondering, where does which hose pipe go when you look closely here? So where do we put the oxygen hose pipe and where do we put on the acetylene hose pipe? The red is the acetylene hose pipe, blue oxygen hose pipe. How do you know? When you look at these nuts around here, you can see one has grooves on it and one doesn't have grooves on it, meaning the one with grooves, they make it to make it easy for you to identify them. The one with grooves is the one for acetylene, the one which receives acetylene hose pipes. The one without, that is for oxygen hose pipe. Now let's connect. Then also the valves here, one opens oxygen, one opens acetylene. And for them, luckily, the one with blues means it's oxygen. The red here disappeared. It's an red torch. But you can tell this is oxygen valve, this is a acetylene valve. Okay, when you are done with this, let's go to our cylinders. We also open the gas. We said that for acetylene we open, put a turn on the acetylene cylinder valve, which is this where you see the spindle key. Now this is our regulator valve. Said opening is clockwise. As you are opening, we said we set the working pressure. We said the working pressure is when the gas is coming out. So you have to open the valve at the torch. You are going to set 5 psi. Look at the regulators. As you move the regulators, the needle in the gauge moves to 5. Then you close the valve at the torch. We do the same for oxygen. For oxygen, we said we open it fully. We said always return the spindle key on the acetylene cylinder. We're also going to set the oxygen working pressure. You hold your torch, you open. After opening, then you open at the regulator while observing the gauge. Now for welding, for cutting, we said we set the working pressure for oxygen at 40 psi. Now for cutting, we are going to set it between 0 and 40. That's around 20 psi. What guides us to set different working pressures is the size of the nozzle orifice. When we are welding, depending on the metal thickness you are going to weld, you get different sizes of the nozzles, and different sizes call for different working pressures. We shall show you the chart. You can set it in between. 40 will be too much, so in between 0 and 40 will be fine. Most likely always look for the chart and it will guide you on how much to set. Now the other thing you shouldn't forget, always test your setup for leakages. So now since this is what we have just connecting the hose on the torch, meaning we have to pour some soapy water around there. If there are leakages, you would see bubbles coming from there. Now there are no bubbles, meaning our setup is leak proof. So now we can go to light it. So this is our striker. So these are our tip cleaners. You have them on hand. This is our feeder wire. Yes, when you start welding, the melt runs, you can have melt runs with or without feeder wire, as I'm going to demonstrate to you. But this is feeder wire. We're going to see how we use it. This is our welding goggles of shade 5. So when we start welding, we shall put off the protective goggles and put on the welding goggles. For welding, we are going to start with melt runs. We're going to do melt runs at first without feeder wire, then also do melt runs with feeder wire. Melt runs, these are weld bits we do in a piece of metal like this one for practice. And this practice helps us to master the gas welding technique, or what we call our Oxy-Fuel welding technique, which is we need to establish first, assume we have our flame here. So we position our torch here. We heat the localized area up to when the metal turns into liquid, what we call molten pool. Once you establish the molten pool, then you push it in the direction of travel. If you are doing it without filler wire, you would even do some side to side motion, like the way you see what I'm doing. If you are to put filler wire, so would push the molten pool as you dip your filler wire there. This practice helps us to become better at the process of Oxy-Fuel welding before you go to the joints. This is what we do when we are beginners. At our beginning stages, we have first practice by doing those melt runs. Once we master the technique of establishing the molten pool, pushing it in the direction of travel, then we can proceed to our joints, T-joint, lap joint, butt joint, the 4 basic joints. Now let's light our torch, then I show you what to do. To note, you can see my filler wire is bent at the end. This we do it for safety, in case I have colleagues nearby, so that you can see this opposite side. It can easily pierce someone's eyes or even other body parts. So we bend this side off, even for our sake. By mistake, you might find it comes into your face. So when it's bent like this, it's safe to use it. Now this one we have done it without filler wire. Now we are going to do another one with filler wire. The technique is the same. Establish molten pool, after push it in the direction of travel. This time we are going to be feeding in filler wire. Now this is our bead, one we have done with filler wire. As we were doing it, we had some challenges whereby we had a lot of popping. The metal would establish molten pool, then it bursts. So when you see that happening, most likely sometimes you find the workpiece, when they are making this metals, could have some impurities in it. So when you're trying to put in filler wire, they are probably not matching very well. So the metals are not really compatible, so that can cause that. But still we managed to have our weld bead there, as you can see it. We shall clean it and we look at it better after the metal is cooled. Now let's go to our joints. We're going to start with the corner joint as we proceed to other joints. Thank you, our viewers and our participants who attended our demonstration class. So we are finalizing our Oxy-Fuel welding. We started with melt runs, which we did on this piece of metal. We did some melt runs without feeder wire, then some with feeder wire. Then from there we did our corner joints on these pieces. Then after the corner joints we did our T-joints. We have two. Then from the T-joints we did our lap joint as our final joint. And if you have been following us, you realize that when we were welding we had some sparks popping and sparks as we were welding. So those are some of the challenges you will meet when you are doing Oxy-Fuel welding. And some of these challenges could be due to impurities in the base metals. Those are the metals you have been welding. So that could cause that. And realize when you also look at our weld beads, you realize that some of them didn't turn out that nice. And that's normal in practical subjects. If you're going to do welding, so it's normal to have some good beads, some bad beads, but if you are practicing, you need to practice a lot so that you can produce only good beads, and also to in time you start knowing what could be the causes for beads not turning out well. In this case, you could go and clean the metals very well before you weld again. Then as you're also purchasing your metals, go for the high quality metals. Here in Uganda, go for the big companies, steel and tube, roofings. Those will give you metals without impurities in them. So these had some impurities in them. When you heat them up, basically the metal as it reaches melting point, you realize that the composition of it, some metals, I think they react vigorously with heat. So that causes popping and making your weld beads not turn out well. But as you see, we managed to have some decent beads, and we have to do more practice. So if you are following us and you also want to try it out, you have to do more practice, Thank you once again for attending our demonstration classes. This is Kazo Technical School.